Hi, I'm Charlotte Davis. I work in South Croydon for a social enterprise, and we do a lot of work helping children get to the point where they can make very much better sense of their physical and cognitive senses so they can learn efficiently and calmly. We also work with adults and people who just want to get to the state where they can use their body, their sound, their vision in a much better way. And I would like to take you through some very basic things that you could all do during lockdown, which would make your bodies work better and would also make you feel calmer and would make you learn more efficiently. It's worth families doing this together. So, first thing, understanding how children need to develop in order to be efficient learners. This is part one, and I intend to just keep going day after day. Let's go. So, very first thing to understand is that every human needs what's called bilateral integration of motor skills. The left and right sides of the body need to work together. I need to be able to go over my midline with either hand without any strange movement, like my eyes blinking endlessly, or my tongue or my jaw, anything else happening which says, actually, I find this very difficult. If they can't do that, it can cause problems with learning. It can cause problems later with understanding. So, for instance, the consequences of not having bilateral integration of motor skills, the person struggles to understand concepts as a whole. They work slowly round. It takes them much longer to understand things if they do at all. Sooner or later they'll hit a point where they can't progress any further. They've reached their limit, and sometimes that can feel like a real cliff edge, and it causes people a real panic because they thought they were good at maths and suddenly they can't. They just cannot do the next concept, and that might be year 3, might be year 9, might be at A level. They were great at GCSE and suddenly at A level they can't access the syllabus. It may even be at degree level, and it causes anxiety. And when we're working with adults, it's very common that that is one of the issues that causes anxiety. Suddenly things drop away. Being unbalanced, not having left and right work together, means that your body and frame become unbalanced, and that can cause a lot of aches and pains later in life. So it is really important we get bilateral integration of motor skills, and that happens between 0 and 7 years of life. You are not fully integrated in your bilateral integration of your gross motor skills until 7. When you are at that stage, you are ready to start using fine motor skills, but you really aren't going to be great with fine motor skills really until 7, 8, when you have mastered your gross motor skills. It is also important to get your postural control. Just look at the human body, it's stupid. You've got a very heavy head balanced on a very delicate frame. Our muscle system is supporting that, and our muscle system needs to be very strong to support it. Otherwise, we're going to get a lean, and that will damage lots of other things. You can't get your bilateral integration, you can't get your vision to work properly, and so on. So, here we are. Basic consequence of poor postural control. People lean off to one side, they can't get their two eyes to work properly together, they struggle to see things as they are. So you can see these children I've taken from some school website, they are only working with one eye. They're really struggling to see. I'm amazed they put them on the website. But they also are going to then struggle to understand something like a rhombus, a diamond shape, what it actually looks like. The arrow is pointing at where the child started drawing it and come round and finished. It's a bit juddery. They don't really know where it begins and ends. They don't know it's symmetrical, either horizontally or vertically. They don't know what the shape looks like. That is really bad news. It makes it impossible to go very much further in learning. So you're stuck at a primary level in terms of learning. We want our children to be much better than that. The next thing you need to think about once you've got your bilateral integration of motor skills and your posture right, you want to think, can a person make very good sense of sound? Are they sound processing? You need sound to understand the world. You need it to understand language in context. And yet, Although the majority of our children get inner ear infection as small children, which makes their muscles in the inner ear lazy, we do very little to correct that. The inner ear does lots of interesting things. Apart from these two little muscles that need to work really well, you also have your motor skills there, your orientation or acceleration, so that sense of where you are in space. You've got your visual nerves, so you're linking your sound with your vision. You have got things like your facial nerves. So when you are making facial expressions, your sound, your vision, everything is coming together. You can recognize somebody, you can make sense of their gestures. It all needs to work together. So if the inner ears got glued up, it's not going to work that well together. There are now all sorts of therapies you can do to get it to work together, but it needs to. The other business is you need to get your vision working well together. Both eyes need to work together to send efficient messages and equal messages to the brain. If the brain is not getting equal messages from both eyes, the brain cannot make sense of those images and will go down to one eye. You need two eyes to see pattern. You need two eyes to see relevant from irrelevant. You need two eyes to see 3D images and so on. So it really limits your learning if you don't have two eyes working well together. The standard eye test does not check. Eyes need to be exercised regularly. Leonardo da Vinci, hundreds of years ago, knew that. He actively exercised and maintained his own vision. That's what we all ought to be doing. You know, he was exceptional for his time. We now expect everybody to be working at a very high level if they're going to earn a serious salary. So the consequences of poor vision are your learner is very dependent on touch, and they might use sound, they might talk to themselves all the time, telling themselves what's going on to navigate through life. It makes them very anxious. They can't process things visually. They can't look at a map, remember it, and then drive to a place. They can't look at a pattern and make sense of it. They can't look at it and see 3D optical illusions. So many aspects of learning they're never going to grasp, and it makes it really hard. So even as simple as the pattern behind times tables. So we test children on times tables, but we don't check they have got the basic development in place to actually see the pattern behind times tables. And in fact, to be honest, I think most children wouldn't have it in place by the time we test them. Rote learning is like being a parrot. It's no use to you. Not to develop higher level, you need to see pattern, and that is essential for learning. So what I'm going to do in the next few weeks as we lock ourselves up here in Britain with some of the most badly developed children in the developed world is I'm going to take you through step by step what a human needs to develop well, and we'll do short videos each day. For those of you who want to follow it in great detail, you will find it useful to get some sound processing equipment. It's not essential, but it's definitely the sound processing bits you'll find very much easier, and sound therapy equipment does some really wonderful things to people. The couple of bits of equipment I would suggest people ought to look at, only buy one of or the other to begin with, is either a Tomatis Infinite headphones, which you can see you get audio vocal loop, and there is some sound therapy music on it, which is very good, or a full brain, which will just give you an audio vocal loop. Either, it depends on how you feel about the equipment. And if you pick up the equipment, then what I would suggest you do is first of all start with one and share it, get to understand how it works before you start buying multiple copies for the whole family. Bum. These are my contact details. If you've tried all this stuff and you've got stuck and you'd like to pay me some money, I'd really like it. But in the meantime, what I really want is I want our country to be so much fitter. And at the moment, our children are not fit to learn. So thank you for listening to me.